Hello, everyone. Welcome to FiredUp, the podcast for marketers working in early and late stage startups. Well, hello there, everyone. Welcome to FiredUp. My name is McLintic, and today I am joined by Nicole Pytel. Hey, Nicole.
Hey, Morgan. Hey, everybody.
So today we're going to be talking about interactive content, what it is, why you need some, what you can do with all that great data. And so it's become even more important today in this AI era than ever before. So just as we lead in here, Nicole, frame us out. Why is interactive content so critical today?
Yeah, it's nothing new. I think we all can think back to those BuzzFeed quizzes. What type of bread are you? Are you sourdough? Are you a baguette? Like, what are you? So Lord knows it's not new. But I think today, it's kind of having a moment because so much has changed because of AI. The way that people are creating content has changed because of AI. You can spin up a blog post in 3 seconds if you really truly want to. You can use it to write an ebook. I wouldn't, but you can. And the way that people are consuming content has totally changed because of AI. We've talked so much about how the buyer journey is changing and, how B2B buyers are becoming more and more dependent on AI, especially for that initial research. Really, I think interactive content comes into play because it's an experience that AI can't whip up for you. And I think we talk a lot about the sea of sameness. And I think that's what AI's kind of created is so many brands sound exactly the same. And so if you really want to do something that's different, you could do something that's interactive. And that way, when folks do land on your website, you've got something cool to give them, something different, something that they're going to remember.
And when we say, okay, you need to get some interactive content, what are some archetypes, some examples of that?
Yeah, there's a bunch of different types. There's quizzes, there's maturity assessments, like one that we just published. There's all kinds of calculators you can do if you want to show time savings of your product or the ROI of your product or the total cost of ownership of your product. If you've got a platform that does a whole bunch of different things, you could build an interactive solution builder so people can see exactly what features they need. And even just taking some of those original lead gen magnets, those guides and playbooks and stuff, you can make those interactive, make it a choose your own adventure type journey. There's a lot of different ways that you can go with this. The sky's kind of the limit. It's just how creative do you want to get?
Right. You see it a lot on B2C sites, right? Or I'm buying a car and I can configure my car. I can choose the different colors and I can change the wheels or whatever it is. And so that's when you say solutions builder in a B2B setting. If I have complex bunch of modules, I can add them together and I can sort of think about the workflow there and maybe build something. And I really like the assessments. I feel like you can ask people questions and give them advice and that you're adding value to them in that. I personally often do those kinds of assessments. I quite like that because I'm getting value from the brand and I'm finding out something that's actionable straight away. This is something that, as you said, you have a playbook or a guide or something. Can you just up-level the information in that to ask the questions that will really draw upon the same kind of thought leadership and how-to content that you've got, but guide people through it in a more interactive way? So what we're talking about here, technically, is pretty simple. Right? There are loads of ROI calculators out there. There are whole companies that what they do is an ROI calculator. But there are lots of other sort of just walk through assessments where, put your questions in, put the answers, and it'll spit out a little report at the end. It's not hard to build those things. So we're not talking about a big design lift. In fact, I would warrant that, a WordPress builder like Divi probably has a whole bunch of modules already pre-built that you can just customize and add onto your site if you use WordPress or that. But, whatever the framer or Webflow, probably got something very similar.
I think that's an important point to make. It doesn't have to be hard. Can you custom code something and make it really fancy and really make it branded? Absolutely. Or if you just want a proof of concept of, hey, you know what? Let's try this assessment. Let's see what we can do with it. Let's see if anybody fills it out. Go on Jotform or Typeform or one of those, and you can build it and put some of your colors on there. There's a lot of different ways to go with it of how involved you want to get. But exactly, this doesn't have to be really hard or really expensive or really time consuming.
And it's having a moment now because if traffic is going down 15 to 20% on your site, buyers are doing their zero-click searches. They're coming in the middle of the funnel. They're coming to your website. We really want them to stick around. We don't want them to bounce. We want to increase that engagement time on site. So something interactive, this calculator, this assessment, this game, whatever it is, a comic book that you walk through, whatever it is going to engage them more. And in fact, there's a HubSpot report here, 2025, so recent data, 79% of marketers are planning to increase their use of interactive content this year. And 88% say that interactive content helps differentiate their brand. So, this is a priority for most tech brands out there.
It is. And there's a very simple reason why. They want to know about themselves. They want to see how they measure up. They want to benchmark themselves. They want to learn what's right for them, what path they should take. Some of my old psych professors might be a little mean and say, hey, we're all kind of self-centered. We want to know. But I think that's important in the B2B buying process where there's a lot of pressure to get it right. You're selling things that are expensive and somebody is going to be held accountable if it's not the right choice. And I think we're seeing a lot of fear of messing up in the B2B buying journey right now because we've had a lot of economic uncertainty. Budgets have been tightened. There's a lot of stakeholders that you've got to convince that this is the right thing. And so I think a piece of interactive content really can help validate that decision. It's not going to make the decision for you, of course not. But if you've got a little solution builder that says, hey, this offers all the features that we need, or you take an assessment and you go, wow, we're really behind our peers in XYZ category. We've got to do something. It gives you a little bit of urgency and a little bit of third-party credence to say, okay, we've kind of got to pull the trigger and do it now.
Right. 87% of B2B buyers, in fact, say that online content has a major or moderate impact on their selection. And 91% of B2B buyers say they prefer interactive or visual content over traditional formats. So content's important in their buying decision, and 91% say they want it to be interactive. That both those are stats from the Demand Gen report. And then sort of on the flip side, 48% of marketers are saying that generative AI has made it harder to differentiate their content. So here are buyers saying, I want this. And here are marketers saying, this Gen AI stuff has made it really hard to stand out. Perhaps the interactive content offers a path forward to solve that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You hear everybody talking about the sea of sameness. This is one way to get a life preserver out of that sea.
Right. It's all very well to say, hey, like content, we need more content and it needs to be interactive. So an ROI calculator or a quiz. I mean, these are formats that are pretty established, right? So they're not new. And there are tools, as you said, Jotform, Typeform, that are out there to sort of build it. So in itself, that's not sort of revolutionary, but also makes me feel like it's fairly straightforward to do. And it's kind of surprising how few B2B brands actually take that step. I do want to talk about, if I build one of these calculators, I'm going to get some data from that, right? Like we all need more first-party data. People filling in this assessment are going to provide me with some. Let's talk about some best practices here on what people should do once they've sort of built their piece of interactive content on their site.
Yeah, that is really where the magic happens, because this is not just a cool thing that you're putting out there as a lead gen magnet, like to have people say, oh, well, that was neat. That was fun. Yes, you want people to remember it and enjoy it, but The real magic here is what you can do on the back end. And the data that you can get from something like this is worth its weight in gold. Because we talk to clients all the time with traditional lead gen forms, like you got to cut down on the number of fields. Like the more things you ask them, the less likely they are to fill out that form to get that report or playbook or whatever it is. But something like an assessment where they're answering questions, they're telling you what their pain point is. They're telling you where they're at as a business right now. They're telling you what some of their goals are, what they're worried about. You're getting all kinds of data right from them that you would never get in a form to download a gated asset. Like, this is just them saying, okay, well, here's how I view this, and here's my top priority, and here's where we're trying to get to. And, you're getting all kinds of information. And that is so valuable from both a marketing and a sales perspective. So, on the marketing side of things, all of that data, every answer you get can go into your CRM and be attached to your contact record. And so what do you do with that? The sky is the limit with what you do with that. You look at our content assessment that we just put out, we can segment audiences based on how mature their content marketing program is, or maybe folks that aren't quite as mature, we can hit them with a different message, put them in a different segment. Or we can get even more granular. People that are struggling with data analysis in their content, we can target them. Or we can create a group of people who do a really, really good job of distributing, but need a little bit of help elevating a little bit better. So there's so many ways that you can slice and dice this data, and you can create better nurtures afterwards. You're not following up with something super generic. You could give them something that's really tailored to their specific situation. So that's one thing. You can also use it for lead scoring purposes. If you've got questions in that assessment that are really important, make it a part of your lead scoring model, make that part of how you determine who your best leads are. You can also use it for better landing pages, things like that. And then when you head to the sales side of things, the more you can arm your sales team with, the better. And so if a salesperson can say, hey, I saw you took this assessment and you're doing really well in this area, but this area over here you seem to be struggling with. Well, guess what? Our platform will help you close that gap. It'll help you fix that problem. When it gives sales some insight going into conversations that they wouldn't have had otherwise.
Yeah, I like this assessment format a little bit more than the ROI calculator kind of thing, because I feel like you've got to establish the credibility of the calculator, right? That this is real data, because otherwise they always come out with, hey, you could save hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so, you're like, okay, yeah. But the assessment, the visitor's going to get some real value. And as an example, this content maturity assessment that we have, we will often, when we engage with a company, go through a sort of audit to sort of gauge where they are anyway. We might do that even in that first call. Okay, let's just talk about how much content you produce and what types of content, and have you got top, middle, and bottom funnel? Have you got them for all the personas? Like, these are questions that you're going to ask on your discovery. And so you have them, and we can now put them into an assessment. A visitor can go through and score themselves, and they don't even have to hire us, right? They're going to walk out with, all right, I've answered these 5 or 10 questions, and it says, okay, someone in your situation should do these 5 things, and that's great because it's a good value add. And as Nicole just said, it's good value add for us because now you have to put in your email. It is, I guess, gated in that sense. It doesn't feel like a form that you have to fill in to get to what you want. It's just part of the flow. We've got different nurtures tied to all those. Whatever your score is, whatever your maturity level is, you're going to get a different report, which says you should do these things. You're going to get a different email nurture that says, hey, companies at your level, like this one, here's where we've done that. Or companies like this, one of our recommendations was to develop more interactive content, right? And here's how you do that, right? And so it will send you information on doing it. And it's much better for us because we're going to get a higher open rate and probably foster a closer relationship with those prospects. And so I walk through that in quite granular detail because this isn't difficult. You probably have this kind of information anyway in your sales team. and you can just codify it in a jot form, take the branding off, put it up on the site, tie it into HubSpot, couple of custom fields, away you go.
Absolutely. And one thing that you can do as you collect more and more of this data is use it to create a report. Here's the state
Mm.
of report. Here's the state of, in our example, content maturity. Like, where are B2B brands? How mature are they in their content marketing? And that becomes a very valuable piece of proprietary data based content. And so it feeds so much. There's so much that it does, from that fun little 5 or 6 question quiz that you can do with this, that's really truly valuable for people who are considering you, and really truly valuable as a way to kind of build some more awareness with a report like that. Get people to notice you because you've got data that nobody else has.
Right. And this kind of interactive content converts twice as well as passive content, according to the Content Marketing Institute. That was a study that they just did last year. And 45% of marketers are saying that this kind of interactive content will increase the time spent on their site. I mean, of course it would, but that's an eye on interactive data point. So, as a marketer, increased conversion rate, that's great. More time on site in front of my brand, interacting with my content, that's great too. So it's a win-win on that side, I think.
Yeah. And I think it's important to point out that we're not saying you don't need the traditional lead gen magnet, the guides or the playbooks that you've got on there. But what interactive content does is it gives you kind of a smarter way to distribute those pieces of content. If you say, hey, you're really struggling over here, and we've got a playbook that gives you a 5-step action plan on how to get better at this, or hey, you're over here struggling with this problem. Well, here's a guide that kind of digs into that and some of the potential solutions. So it's just a better way to get the content that you have out to the people who are going to appreciate it most.
Right. CMI, Content Marketing Institute, also has got some great stats here about that 60% of marketers say that they've actually used some of these platforms. Like, they're easy to build. We mentioned Typeform, HubSpot's got some tools, Outgro's got some tools. So I think marketers are out there trying these things, and now is a real time, more important than ever to do it because, as we say, fewer people are coming to your site. We see that, like, I know it's the summer, and I know that seasonality is a thing in terms of overall traffic and in terms of conversion rates on that traffic and overall engagement time. You see it, July, August, you do see those go down. But now is also a great time to kind of build that stuff for the fall, because it's not going to take that long. And this will actually sort of help offset some of the declines we're going to get from zero-click search, because we know that's only going to get worse.
We know it's happening. We know it's going to get worse. So, we were doing July reporting for our clients and saying, okay, well, yeah, your traffic's down, since June, month over month. Well, let's look year over year. Looking at July 2024, some of the numbers just, wow, some of the decreases in traffic that we saw of some of our clients. And so, yeah, you've got to make the most of every session on your website. And this is a really great way to do that. And we keep talking about we need to be discoverable by AI and memorable for humans. It's a 2-step thing. You've got to stick with the GEO and all of those things that go into that so that AI is talking about you and citing you and sending people to your website. And then when they get there, they're a little bit lower in the funnel than they were a year or two ago. You've got to hook them with something really creative. You've got to hook them with something that they're going to remember, because there's a lot of vendors out there trying to get their attention, and you've got to be the one that stands out. You've got to be on that top 3 list, really.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about lead quality. We spoke to Rich Khan a few weeks ago about ad click fraud and how a lot of those sort of fraud farms are actually completing form fills in order to sort of send better signals back to the network so that they can accelerate their fraud. So that's why you're getting a lot of these sort of junk form fills. When it comes to something interactive, there's a stat here, 59% of companies report that the qualified leads from these sort of assessments and diagnostic tools increases. And that's a Path Factory data point. And why is that? Because those people filling in that form are committing more of their personal time and attention to doing it. And because the bots can't complete those interactions as well. They're not going to click all the radio buttons and fill in the free form boxes and adjust the sliders, fill in your calculator, etc. No one's going to be programming a bot to do that. It's just not worth it for your site because these things are too customized. So what you end up with is higher quality leads going through these interactive pieces of content. So here we're painting a picture of increased conversion rate and higher quality of lead, and then all the data that you get on the flip side. So it definitely feels like this should be a priority for you as you're mapping out your content in H2 here.
100%. It is a win-win-win. And yeah, great point about the ad click fraud, because you're right. A bot can't take your quiz or anything like that. So yeah, it's a great way to get legitimate, actual human beings.
Okay, this sounds great, but how do we avoid just sort of being interactive for interactive's sake here, Nicole?
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a danger. Like, hey, we went out and created something cool, but is it valuable? It's pretty and it's got bells and whistles, but like, so what? And then that's definitely a risk. I think what you need to do is what you do with every other piece of content. Who is my target audience? What are their pain points? What are they trying to accomplish? It's just the same basic questions that you ask yourself. And, when we were coming up with our content assessment, it was like, okay, well, what are the different parts of content marketing? It's not just content creation. It's not just distribution. It's not just analysis. It's all of those things put together. And odds are, no one does all of them perfectly. There just aren't enough resources or hours in the day to do all of them perfectly. So it's helpful for brands to understand, well, hey, we're really good at this. We could be better at that.
Mm-hmm.
Over here, we haven't really considered that part at all. And then getting a follow-up that says, okay, here's where you're at, and here's what that means, and here's what you can do to try to fix it. And I think that's the value is, can somebody take action after completing your interactive tool, whatever it is? Do they have something helpful? Can they go back to their team and say, hey, I found this out. I benchmarked us against other brands and we're at a 2 out of 10, or, things like that. Is it going to be valuable in the end? You got to think about that end product. Or is somebody just going to go, yeah, that was cool, and they X out of it and they move on with life? You've got to give them a next step. You've got to give them something tangible to go back to their team with.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, all right, I've built my piece of interactive content. I like it. Let's talk about distribution and promotion. What are some best practices to kind of get prospects through this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's all that different from other content distribution. I don't think we're really reinventing the wheel here. It's all the channels that you would normally pull. You do your paid and organic stuff, you do your email, you've got your employees sharing it, you've got your sales team. That gives them a great reason to reach out to people and say, hey, we just put out this assessment. Why don't you go take it and see what you're at, and we can discuss the results? So there's nothing magical about it. It's those best practices that you see across content marketing apply here.
I just remember one client who had quite an elaborate sort of workflow on the back end of their interactive thing that would use the answers with the sales team to qualify prospects in or out. So not only are you using this customized on the marketing side, that what's the follow-up, but they were also sort of going, okay, helping with the output of that into their lead scoring model so that they could say, all right, well, they've answered these questions and they're in a sector that we don't cater for, or they're an enterprise customer and we only sell to the mid-market, or what have you. And then that just helped with the sales team as well, because they sort of gathered all this information. And so it's funny, as you said, I was like, oh yeah, the sales team, we're talking this through a marketing lens, but this first party data is just gold for the sales team. And so they can often just use these even on their own, even without all the marketing benefits that something like this.
100%, 100%. And in a lot of places, this might bridge the gap between marketing and sales. Here is just a platter of answers that you want, and we've generated them for you, and it's going to save you a lot of time, and it's going to save you a lot of teeth pulling. And here's the answers that you need to go
Hmm.
after the very highest quality prospects. It's
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah. And you can get pretty elaborate with the logic on the back end here in terms of the questions. I ask this question, they answer this, then ask this question. So, if you want, as you go on your sort of journey with these assessments, if you get early good signal, you can build it out even further, right? You can have it much more customized so that when they answer, hey, I'm in the federal sector, or I'm a pharmaceutical company, or I'm a company of an enterprise side, then the rest of the assessment is much more highly tailored to them. And they're going to love that because they get a lot more value out of it. And, it's a small amount of coding on the back end, but the logics can get pretty good. I like the fact that you can get some early signal on this and then invest in this kind of asset much further and create more value.
Yeah, I would definitely take a phased approach. Get something out there, get something under your belt, get comfortable with creating it and promoting it and analyzing all that data and thinking about what you can do with it. And then, yeah, look at the signal and then take it up a notch.
Yeah. So, Nicole, we want more conversions. We want more time on site. We want higher quality leads. This all sounds great. I get it. Zero click behavior, more time on the site. Let's do this. What would be your advice just as we wrap here for the next step? Okay. I like it. I'm sold. Now what?
Well, I mean, they can ask us to do it, of course. But if you want to take this on yourself, absolutely. Start thinking about what would be most valuable. Start at the end and work backwards. Who are we talking to? What information do we need to get? What expertise do we have that we can give them in the end that's valuable? And go from there. Start simple. This doesn't have to be a big, complicated thing with lots of different flows and arrows and all kinds of things. Come up with 6 questions and see where it goes. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. As we're building out the content marketing assessment, we built it in Jot form and that works great. And now we're sort of already enhancing it. What's the platform that you're using? Oh, Netlify.
Yeah, we've got some custom code. We said, you know what? Jotform is perfectly fine. We'd like to jazz this up a little bit. Our designer was in there like, yes, let me go in and just play with this code. And she had a great time. And it just a more polished finished product. And, everything goes into HubSpot like it should. We had a great time doing it. It was a lot to learn to build it out beyond the typical Jotform or Typeform, but you can make it look a lot cooler, which helps make your brand look a little cooler.
So I think that's a great place for us to wrap. It's the AI era. Interactive content is more important than ever. And it's also a lot easier to create than ever. So we'd encourage you all, take some of your current materials, think about a guide. How do I turn this to be an interactive? You could ungate it if you want, but just sort of relatively easy to build it out into a nice flow there. And once you've sort of got a proof of concept, you can scale from there. All right, Nicole, thank you for taking us through interactive content and why it's more important than ever. Really appreciate that. And thank you all for listening. If you like that, please drop us a comment or like and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And we will see you all again next week.